Quadro M4000 that I got for free. And I did have an entire computer ready, but I felt that no one's going to pay anything for it, and I didn't want to sell a computer that wasn't Windows 11 ready. So, and I did get really good deals built around bundles, and I sold just about everything that I had purchased for that initial build, Quadro build, except for RAM, a couple RAM sticks. Ended up with 16 gigs of DDR4 for 3000 megahertz RAM sticks. In the end, cost me about $10. So not the best, but only cost $10. Oh, and I have 4 ARGB fans that cost me $10. I saved that. So got rid of all of those items, and now I have this build. Off the top of my head, I don't know, probably don't know the price of anything, but I will update that on the screen as we go. So this is the ROG Strix B550F gaming motherboard. It is technically a better motherboard than the one in my personal computer. This is definitely going to be the last AM4 build I do. My next build will be an AM5, and it will replace my current computer. I bought this off of a guy, brand new. He buys Amazon pallets, and every part is here. It comes with zip ties, ARGB cable, stickers, NVMe pads, standoffs, SATA cables, which I'm definitely going to need, and a bunch of that stuff. And it'll have 2 M.2 slots. We got a Ryzen 7 3700X. This was the second one I messaged about on Marketplace. The first one, I messaged a guy. He didn't get back to me for about a day. So then I messaged another guy, and we came to a price agreement. The first guy came back right before I was going to buy this and told me that somebody was trying to buy it at one price from him, and he was waiting on the guy to arrive, and he offered to sell it to me for $10 more than what the guy was going to buy it from him for, which happened to be lower than what I had agreed to purchase with the second guy from. But I didn't feel comfortable doing that kind of business, so I declined. When I met this guy that sold me this in person, he gave me some new information. He promised this CPU worked great. However, there was a bunch of thermal paste all over the pins. And indeed there was. He swore up and down this worked. I brought it home. I was able to remove all the thermal paste. The pins look good. I have no idea if this works. I really hope so. So let's put the camera down and put this on the motherboard. And there we go. Fits like a glove. Next up, I guess we'll take a look at our SSD. It's a pretty old 970 Evo 500 gigabyte. This is actually the same SSD in my current computer. I have no issues with this. And yeah, I'll put it right in that slot. And we got a pair of these Corsair Vengeance LPX DDR4 3000 megahertz. Not excited about it being blue, but I don't think it's going to throw off the color scheme that much. So let's install that before we put on the fan. There we go. 2 RAM sticks, CPU, storage. And getting a CPU cooler proved to be a big pain in the butt that drug on for a few weeks. I had the same issue that I had with the power supplies in the marketplace we'll talk about in a minute. I would find a nice price, the seller would come to an agreement, we'd try to figure out where we're going to meet, and then he would ghost me. I'd message again, and then I'd message one more time saying, final deal. That sound was my dog drinking some water. I'd message again saying last call, and then he'd still ghost me, and then I'd move on and move on. I finally found this. This is from another Amazon pallet seller, brand new. Initially, I thought it was a really good deal. It ended up just being a fair price because the guy kind of mislabeled this as the ARGB version. A little annoying, but I'm still accepting, or I still went with the deal. Again, it's just a fair price, but this is the Phantom Spirit 120, and let's get this installed. Still need to put a fan in the front and in the middle. My concern here is RAM clearance. I don't think those spreaders are too terribly high. I did see some configurations where people would have the front fan a little off. Hopefully I don't have to deal with that because I'm going with this fan. And I think I need to take off these standoffs or whatever these are called. All right, the cooler is installed, and I don't really think RAM clearance is going to be an issue. But let's install these fans and find out. That's pretty close. Definitely will have to remove the fan to get the RAM in, but RAM clearance is not going to be an issue. Let's hook up these cables. All right, this motherboard actually has 2 CPU fan inputs, so I didn't have to use a splitter. And these cables are kind of tucked away under this cooler. Hopefully you won't see them. Next up, I think we're going to put this in this case. I got a pretty good deal on this case. I think it ended up being 25 or 30. I'll put the price on the screen. It is a case from a pre-built Cyber Power, but I believe it's also a Lian Li. It is missing that portion of the back panel. I think that's for a vertical GPU mount. I've never used one, so I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure that's it. But it's a pretty nice case. I think it's pretty, and that's what counts. So let's install this into the case. And there we go, the motherboard is mounted. I'll only be able to have time to do a few more steps on this build before I have to get ready for work and run some errands. Let's try installing the front panel connectors and maybe some fans. All right, for now we have 2 120mm intake and 2 120mm exhaust. Thought I had another fan, but turns out this is 140. Maybe I'll add one. Maybe it won't be cost effective. What's next? Power supply. Oh, yeah. Front panel connectors. Okay, HD audio, front panel, and the USB 3. All right, the next day, I got this, I believe, I got this as part of a bundle with the previous build. I sold the rest of the bundle and kept this. I think the price I paid for this ended up being about $10. I'll put the price on the screen. And the rear of the case, these are all my fan wires. Cable management isn't an issue to deal with right now. And I guess I'll put the SSD right here. We'll do that real quick. All right, so that's installed. I've got a 500 gigs right here, 500 gig NVMe, and now I have this 3 terabyte hard drive, which I was able to get for free. And I'll pop this here in one of these caddies. Hard drive is in. Next I'll put in this graphics card. Again, I'm not going to have this be the graphics card in the computer when I try to sell it. However, I do want to test it to see if this works, and then maybe I can get $40 or $50 for this and use that money towards the graphics card I will eventually put in this. I do have an issue though. This only has display out, and my computer monitor is only HDMI. So once I do install this and when I'm finished with the build, I have to take this somewhere else to test this. But I can go ahead and put this in my power supply, connect my cables, and see if things turns on. This is a complete mess. Hopefully I can somehow neatly pack all of this under here. And I still have to connect this to the motherboard and eventually the power supply. And before I continue, I do realize I've got some ugly colored cables here and over here with the HD audio. I'm gonna cover that up real quick with some electrical tape, and that should make it look a lot more attractive. And that looks a lot better, except for a tiny speck, which I might just pop another tiny piece of tape on. And power supply. We have a EVGA SuperNOVA 650 Platinum Plus. And this was just as hard for me to get on the marketplace as a CPU cooler. In fact, it was harder. Everybody, I knew I wanted at least 600 watts. Was trying to get modular. And the big issue for me was for the motherboard. I wanted the dual or the 2 CPU cables. So that limited me. Everything I found on Marketplace was used items, and they were wanting to... That noise is my dog napping. He's a snorer and he's a farter. But everything, every PSU on Marketplace was used, and they were wanting brand new prices, sometimes more expensive than new prices. So I had to buy this from eBay. Well, I'm not happy completely with the cable management, but I'm not exactly patient or creative, and it's gonna get worse when we look down. So many cables involved. I ended up putting the IQ Corsair whatever hub, Commander whatever, right here on the side of the PSU. It should be safe. But there's just so many fan cables. Just look up from the top down. Don't look down here. I'm happy with the front though. Of course, this is the easy side. I think it looks pretty clean. I really hope these fans light up, or else they'll look really... They won't look that great with that color scheme, and you want your stuff to work. $10 wasn't a lot. Hopefully they work. All right, we are plugged in, and immediately we've got the RGB on the motherboard lit up, so it is receiving some kind of a power. Hopefully something happens. when I press this. Hopefully it just does a few power cycles. Again, this is not hooked up to a monitor. I'll just leave this on for a second. See if any of these lights on the motherboard do anything funky. Right away, I only see one fan lit up. That's pretty annoying. That leads me to believe these other three probably don't stinking work. But what's the light on here? That is boot, and we've got a white light for VGA. I don't have any light for CPU, any light for RAM. So I'll look up and see if green and white are good, and maybe the other two lights aren't supposed to be on. But green indicates that it's an issue booting. Again, I don't have this hooked up to a monitor. And the white indicates there's an issue with the graphics card. Again, I don't have a monitor. Okay, so there may not be an issue. I just need to wait until I hook up a monitor. I think it's just indicating that the graphics card is not detecting a monitor. Hopefully that's the issue. I'll find that out in a day or so when I bring this to a place with a monitor I can hook up. And I'm gonna need to get some fans, but let me go ahead and hook up all the panels and we'll see how this looks. So imagine if these lights worked. How nice that would look. But I'm gonna have to put money on these fans. Maybe get that 140 millimeter fan. And hook this up to a monitor. Oh look, I've got Windows 10 installed. Let's check and see if we have all of the drives detected. 500 gig, and the 3 terabyte hard drive. The storage is looking good. And let's take a look at some of our specs. We got the CPU looks good, the RAM looks good, and the GPU is recognized. Alright, we're just about done. I do not have my graphics card yet, so we are not finishing for sure. I'm replacing these fans, hopefully, with a set of 4 fans I bought from eBay for about $25 with tax and shipping. I'm not hooking them up yet. I want to see if they light up and if they spin. They will not be able to plug into the hub, so I'm going to have to get rid of that hub. That will clean up the wiring in the back. However, it will add wires in the front area. But if they work, I'm willing to deal with that. Let's power on and see if these can light up. Light. These are not lit. I'm going to power this down and see if I have them plugged in backwards. Okay, there. That noise went away. It was just flipped over wrong. Let's see if I can get these to work. Update. Quick update. They are working. I just apparently had that RGB cable plugged in upside down. They look to be good. So now I'm going to install these, work on the wiring. Over here on the rear, we have this empty space here. We're missing a part. I took an extra mesh. I still have this mesh after I think 4 builds. Put some magnet on it. And not the best solution. but it's working. And I'm gonna add a Wi-Fi card. But let's mount these fans and see how they look. All right, pre-cable management. I have the fans and RGB hooked up. I essentially traded a hub for Molex cables or connectors just floating around, and 4 adapters for 2 fan splitters. But they're now going to be in the front. The front looks pretty clean. I'll turn it around. This I'm not going to manage yet because I just remembered I also ordered a 140 millimeter exhaust fan for the back. But let me flip this around real quick. And we have a RGB connector there, fan splitter there. Not too invasive on the cable management there. We have a splitter plugged in right there. Cables tucked in underneath the cooler. We have a RGB connector right in there. And it's not too bad. Let me connect a Wi-Fi adapter into a PCIe slot, and then we'll put the panels on and see how the lights look. I still don't have a graphics card that I can hook up to a monitor, so we're just gonna power it up and power it off. Okay, we've got the Wi-Fi card installed. Why do they insist on keeping these silver in color and not black? In most cases now are black. They should default to black. Not that big of a deal. You don't see the back of the case. And there we go. I just need to put a new graphics card, 140 millimeter fan, update to Windows 11, and put the RGB software in, and run some tests, and hopefully I can at least break even because I spent more money on this than I planned. I don't see myself making a profit, but breaking even will be good for me. I'm not trying to do this for a job. All right, we just added a 1660 Super I got off of the marketplace. Not a great deal, but it was still a pretty good deal. Let's fire this up and see if we get these fans spinning. I think this is a beautiful computer. I did have one issue with the graphics card. The 1660 Super refuses or just will not give me a video signal while it's booting using the HDMI port. I only get a signal after Windows has loaded. I put in my 3060 from my other computer, and I don't have that issue with the HDMI port. I took the computer to another place again and checked the display port. The display port will show the boot, so you can get into the BIOS using the display port only. I will put this in the ad and be completely honest, and I'm listing this at $600 with the expectation to hopefully sell it for $475. I will show the pictures from my Facebook ad, and I will read the description. I feel like I was pretty forthcoming and as honest and as descriptive as could be ever expected in a Facebook Marketplace posting. Condition: used like new.
Beautiful PC I just finished building in the past few days. It's housed in a nice case that has a CyberPower badge. I think Lee & Lee built it. Specs: Ryzen 7 3700X with oversized CPU cooler with 2 fans. Asus ROG Strix B550F gaming motherboard. 16GB dual channel 2 8GB sticks. DDR4 3000. CL15 RAM. 500GB Samsung NVMe SSD. 500GB Western Digital 2.5-inch SSD, 3TB hard drive, MSI Ventus XSOC GTX 1660 Super 6GB, 650-watt EVGA fully modular power supply, 4 RGB 120mm fans, 1 140mm fan, also added a Wi-Fi card, can add an old keyboard and mouse for free if needed, have box for motherboard with leftover hardware, box for GPU, and box and leftover hardware for CPU cooler. Have unused PSU cables. Will also add power cord with PC. Did fine with Passmark using HDMI video, won't display until Windows login screen. DisplayPort shows video during entire boot process, so a monitor with DisplayPort connection would be best. Windows 10 is installed, not yet activated. You can get keys online for about $25. PC is ready for Windows 11 upgrade. Again, I listed this initially for $600. After a few days, somebody did message me and ask for my best price. I told him $475. Full transparency, I wanted to just get rid of this and break even. He took it, but he ghosted me the day we were supposed to meet, which would have been a day or two later. I don't remember exactly how long. Somebody did reach out to me within hours of me dropping the price to $550. I asked him if he had any questions and if he read the full description. He said he didn't know anything about computers, so there was nothing he could really ask where I would answer and it would mean anything to him. We agreed at $550, and I was going to have to wait a couple of days before we were able to meet because our work schedules conflicted. Later that night, somebody messaged me if it was available, and I told him, sort of. I was meeting somebody the day after tomorrow in the morning for $550. He offered me $700 to meet now. I couldn't because I was at work and don't have the computer on me. So then he offered me $650 for the next morning. The next morning, he ghosted me and didn't reach back until the afternoon. At that point, I would have been uncomfortable canceling on this guy that offered me $550. So I met the guy at $550 Saturday morning at 1 o'clock at the designated location. I showed him everything, re-explained everything, made it clear what the issue was with the graphics card. He took it, he was happy, and he didn't even need the keyboard or the mouse. So that's a plus. Sold it for $550. I think that's about $60, $70 profit. I would have been happy to break even. And that's it. That was my 4th Facebook Marketplace sale, and I don't see myself doing anytime soon. My next build I'm thinking is an AM5 for my personal computer, but we'll see. Unless I see a great deal out there, I'm probably just going to stay pat. Stand pat? Whatever.